Welcome in. We have an emergency, I guess, podcast here at the Daily Wolves courtside today. We wanted to get it out to you last night. We couldn't get everything around the team. We were all busy doing our thing. So we're tackling it today. We got Duncan on, and of course, myself, the host, Evan. We're going to talk Timberwolves basketball. We got Io DeSumo getting a new contract extension, Julius Randle getting moved, all that and more. And maybe there's another something looming in the NBA draft
Big day.
today. It happens
Yep, big
tonight.
day.
It turned from like a not so big day Duncan into a big day man. And why do you feel that way now that like this could be like for people listening right now? Why might this be a big day for the Wolves later tonight during the draft?
Uh, the 33rd overall pick is probably not where the Wolves will be initially picking tonight. I think there is a lot to happen with whatever goes on with Rudy Gobert in terms of moving up in the draft. Obviously, the 28th pick is now the 33rd overall pick, and it gives them more flexibility in the fact that it can be a two-way contract, so they may just. That's not even tonight, right? The second round is tomorrow, I think, on Wednesday, I believe. So,
Correct.
in order to pick tonight, they will be making a trade. If that happens, there is a lot of steam that they'll be moving up into the teens area to take a possible point guard that they have worked out. So I think there are a lot of moving parts in what Tim Connolly's trying to accomplish, and rightfully so. I think everybody knew going into the offseason that moves had to be made. And I think we can get into the moves of what has happened so far, because everything coming next is just, wishful thinking and hopeful thinking and what's going to happen. But the reality is that they dumped Randall
Yep.
and they signed Io to a 5-year extension, which I think you and I both agree is a little high initially, in terms of what you're paying him per year. But you hope when year 4, year 5 comes around, looks like a good contract. So we can dive into whichever you want to decipher first, but lots to talk about. Lots to talk
It's
about.
it's interesting, man, because like back when like the trade deadline was going on, like the Timberwolves, they tried to move Julius Randle. Like they were
Hmm.
definitely like it was there. And like in the league, just around like even back then, there just wasn't that much interest in Julius Randle. Now, fast forward, you're seeing when it plays off into that deal that Randall's value just isn't there just isn't value there around the league. And
Nope.
teams, it obviously came down to, like you said, a salary dump. And I think that's very disappointing now when I like analyze the Carl Anthony Towns trade from afar, because it's coming down to what will Johan Berenger eventually become, and that will
Hmm.
decide everything at this point. I was thinking about this too, Duncan, which we haven't talked about yet or brought up. The Dante DiVincenzo injury to the Achilles tear
Yeah.
had a ripple effect on the trajectory of this offseason and for the Timberwolves, because I think if that injury doesn't
Hmm.
happen, maybe this trade with Julius Randle doesn't happen or something different, right? Or you could have used Dante, and then you don't have to salary dump necessarily
Yeah.
because Dante was worth assets as well. I think
Yep.
that is why the ripple effect now comes down to the Timberwolves having to pivot off what they were going to be doing, which is
Yep.
staying as competitive they are. And now
Hmm.
there's a gap here, which fans don't want to necessarily talk about, including us over here. We'd rather not watch that either. Like you and me
Yeah.
we're getting used to that, man. So, but I do
Hmm.
think that injury sounds weird, is like having this weird ripple effect now. And the Karl Anthony Towns trade could potentially be turning into not so good of a thing for the Minnesota side, depending on how, again, Johan Berenger turns out, because it's not looking the best right now.
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about this, throughout last night and going into this morning, and I do trust Tim Conley to do, for the most part, good things.
Yeah.
But the track record is is starting to look not as sexy as we initially want it to be. Bringing in Rudy Gobert is good, but bringing
Mm-hmm.
him in at the price that we paid for him is, a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. Now, we did go to the Western Conference Finals 2 times, partially because of how great his defense was, but you saw he could be exposed in certain situations. And what would it have looked like if we didn't trade all those picks and instead used it maybe for a different asset or a different player who may have been we've been able to get in 5 months after making that trade instead of trading for Gobert. Not to go along with that, but he traded up for Rob Dillingham, and that was a
Yep.
really, really, really bad trade. I mean,
Yeah, it was
there's no
bad.
sugarcoating it. Terrible. Traded Cat, not looking good right now.
Yeah.
I understand Baron J can really change that. There's still a lot of time. I think people have just wrote it
Yeah, we have
off
no
as,
idea.
yeah. I think Baron J. I mean, he's really good. He's really, really good. He couldn't play last year because Randall, Nas, and Rudy were in front of him, and there was just no room for him to play, sadly. And I think he could have been um, very solid last year. But we'll see it this year. And then, not to mention that, I think the one that's coming down the track that's even worse is, what was it, 4 for 64 for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and just
Yeah.
instead dumping Julius Randle for. Honestly, there's no way that you couldn't have done the same exact thing last year in the offseason and just dumped his salary for moving down 5 slots in a draft or something like that and keeping Nah. So, yeah, it's not a good track record right now. I mean, obviously he had the Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker move, which was fantastic, but in a nutshell, like, yeah, it's not great. I am surprised about the Julius Randle having to be dumped. He is still a 23 per game night guy, and he still gets 7, 8 boards, and he's gonna average 4 or 5 assists. So it is insane to me with the new draft structure and how teams have to finish better than the lower 3 teams, and to actually have a chance at really getting that number 1
Yep.
overall pick, that teams aren't just looking at it and be like, hey, he is an actual asset, because he's a floor raiser in the regular season. Now it's a postseason where it really becomes an issue for him. So I am stunned that you do have to give up negative assets to get him off of your team, but that's where things stand with him right now. So that it is what it is. And in order for the Wolves to kind of have flexibility, that's what they had to do. And I think they'll probably be better off next season for it. But I also still think Julius Randle will probably be pretty productive for the Nets next year. But they're still going to suck because the Nets are really, really, really bad. And they got a long
Yeah,
way to
there.
go. So, but he's going to
That's
get
kind
his
of
shots.
that's kind of what you said too about like the new structure of everything and why teams like so that teams don't tank as much. That's why these new
Mm-hmm.
rules are going in place for the NBA. And so if anything, that change assisted Minnesota in making this kind of a deal because the
Mm-hmm.
Nets were like, whoa, yeah, we'll take on Randall,
Right.
because he contributes to winning, right? We know Randall is like a vet who's
Floor
going to come in and
raiser.
do his thing, right? Floor raiser.
Yep.
And especially being on a team like the Nets, like when you said the
Mm-hmm.
23 points, like easily he's the number 1 option in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
like some of his numbers too are going to look inflated next year to Timberwolves
Mm-hmm.
fans as well. And so you're going to see people being like, he's doing this. This is what he's doing. We told you. And I'm like, yeah, but like he's not
Mm-hmm.
sharing the ball and shots with Anthony Edwards and
Yep.
Jaden McDaniels and
Opening
Dante
up those shots.
DiVincenzo, right?
Yep. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like things are going to be a little bit different. He's also in the East, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like the moodiness, I think, is what came down to Julius being moved. It was like the post game pouting. It was the temperature in the locker room too. Post like who wants to be around that? It was on the bench. It's on the court. It's the thing with Rudy Gobert and throwing the ball at him, going way back to then. Like I don't think any player on the team necessarily had issues with each other. Like I think they're all cool still today. I just think that it's tough when, I mean, everyone I feel like listening probably has somebody in their life where they just get really upset really quickly and they're just, they might flip the Monopoly board when you're playing and be like, walk out.
Yeah,
and you're like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to your buddy, you're like, bro, it's a game, like chill. I think the Wolves had that with Randall. And so I don't think there's like any bad blood amongst the players. I also think that like Jaden's moody at sometimes. Nas Reed's moody at sometimes. This is a moody team, Duncan. And you can only have so many.
Yeah.
No, you get it. But you can't have like so many moody players on the same roster. especially when you
Mhm.
need something for your number 2 guy. I think that was also a deciding factor of getting rid of one of the guys and then leaning into the youth, man, just seeing what they
Mhm.
can do, where they said take a step back to take a step forward maybe.
Mhm.
Maybe that's what you're going to see because now it opens it up for a guy like Nas Reed to be a starter for the first time. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I know everybody's saying gap year, but I think they can make the right moves to still be a top 3 or 4 team in the West and match up well. I mentioned in our group text last night is there's an
Uh-huh.
opportunity to get an MLE here so that you can land a guy like maybe a Porzingis, and we know he struggles to stay healthy, but then you get to pair Nas and Porzingis, two shooting bigs with Anthony Edwards. So the court is basically a 5-out scenario. And then you get 25 minutes a night with Baron J as he's rim running. And he gets to develop with Porzingis, who's been a very, all-star throughout his career when he's healthy. So I still think like Nas is going to it's going to open looks up for the players that we need to see development from this core. It's
Mhm.
Nas, it's Jaden, it's Baron J. And now can you find somebody with that MLE or the trade exceptions that you got with Julius Randle and Mike Conley last year to bring in somebody that can help bridge the gap in the gap year and actually turn it maybe into a possible championship year. I'm still not ruling it out. I still think that there can be moves that are made to make them real competitive, but this is now giving Nas, giving Jaden the usage that Julius Randle had and turning it into their usage so that we find out if they are the guys that we think they are. Because if they're not, then you got to pivot again next offseason, and decide if maybe trading Nas and Jaden for a bigger package next offseason and what needs to be done. But I think it's the right thing to do in the sense that let's give these looks to one of the best shooting power forwards in the league. Let's get Jaden more ISO usage, and let them cook. And if we don't got it this year, then you'll find out, very quickly.
I think that's what it's about. Like you nailed it on the head for viewers listening. It's all about leaning in and finding out, is Naj Reid that good?
Mm-hmm.
Is Jaden McDaniels that good? We know what
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Edwards is right now. We don't have question marks about it. Johan
Mm-hmm.
Baron J, he's finally going to get, like you said, playing time to find out how good is this kid early on in his development for being so raw. Is he ahead
Mm-hmm.
of the curve? We think he is, but like let's see where he levels up. Is he good enough to be a starter? I love that you brought up too, like bringing in a vet like Porzingis or just another center like Al Horford. It could be
Right.
anybody.
Right.
Horford would
Don't
get
get stuck on the
significantly
Porzingis
less
here,
though.
folks. Like
He
it
would
can
get
be a lot of people at that center position to go along with it. Now, there's trades that can also be made to bridge the
yeah.
gap, but it's like someone's going to have to come in to give 20 to 25 minutes so that Yon doesn't have to play 32 to 35 minutes. It's just not realistic to think that he can do that right away. Maybe he can in 6 weeks into the season and we see it, but it's not a winning strategy to just say go
No,
get a
it's not.
Tiger.
And so then but what it's really about right now is the guys who've been in the league for a while. They're not kids anymore. They're vets and they're entering their
Mm-hmm.
prime. And that's Jaden and Nas. And at
Yep.
this point, you need to answer the bell and say, all right, we're making you our starter now, Nas. Can you take
Mm-hmm.
your game to a new level now? Can you
Mm-hmm.
prove to us you are a starting level player, which we believe you are? Let's see it. If you can't do those things, yes, a move has to be made. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter how much people love him in Minnesota. If Jaden can't take another leap forward now, because Jaden's going to turn into the number 2 option on this team, finally.
Mm-hmm.
And so now
Mm-hmm.
it's like we saw those flashes. He was great in the playoffs, but then he disappeared in the Spurs series for parts of it. Like you can't have games for a week and look like a star or a month and then have a
Yep.
week or two off. Like that just isn't it. That's not going to win you a title. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking, how does Jaden handle his emotions? How does Nas? Can they stay focused? Now they're a little bit younger of a team. If they're going to, let's say they move and like Rudy, let's just say hypothetically,
Mm-hmm.
you lean into like younger. Can these young guys be leaders? Can Ant, Jaden, and Nas turn into the vets? We'll see. That's what this
Mm-hmm.
move is all about. And so It's interesting, man. You made a good point about like tonight's draft. I think like the Hornets, I think are around 14, or maybe they are pick
Hmm.
14. That's an interesting team where I'm like, I can see Gobert
Yeah, they
getting
need
moved
him.
there.
Yeah, they
Minnesota
need a guy
getting,
like that.
yeah, like it makes sense for both sides.
Hmm.
And I think Rudy's value is so high. It's why I think tonight there is a chance that Rudy Gobert can get moved because of the NBA draft falling perfectly in line with it. Now you pivot off Randall. And really, like you said, going out and finding a different center that can be some type of a starter level center so that you don't have to have Baron J. And then what you're doing is you're accumulating what you get out of Rudy Gobert. Also, why was the guy, that player from Alabama, the point guard, why was he in here working
Yeah,
out when we're nowhere near that pick and it got like
yeah,
put out? That's very like, if you're following the path, that happening into making the move for Randall, and taking a step back, and then the NBA drafts tonight. To me, it's a pattern of what it's showing of where the Wolves are going, and that's potentially pivoting and going into that direction. And that's
yeah,
why there's other teams too tonight that they could make a deal with. I don't know what it is, but I just get this feeling that I
yeah.
think Minnesota will make a deal tonight, man.
It's one of those things where Tim Conley, he has a plan A, he has a plan B, he has a plan C. He is rolled through this now. There's a reason he worked out. I think it's Phylon is his name, the point guard from Alabama. There's a reason he worked him
Yeah.
out. It's because he has had probably preliminary trade talks with somebody in that range for a player on our team or future draft assets. And I'm more inclined to believe that it's probably like a Rudy Gobert to the Hornets or Rudy Gobert to another team that thinks they can compete next year and needs a defensive center. That's somewhere in that 10 to 15 range where one of those point guards may fall.
Mm-hmm.
My dream is Darius Acuff, but I don't think that's realistic in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, that's kind of what you expect to do. I one thing I want to touch on is I'm excited to see the growth of Io next year.
Yeah.
Um, I know we mentioned last night, and I mentioned dude dropped 40 points a game, 40 points in a playoff game. There's serious possibility for a growth there for him to turn into one of the core 4 or 5 in this group of it could end up being, and I think he can be a closer on a good team if he develops, but it could be Io and Jaden Nas and Yon in the long run because that's a 5-year contract that he signed. Um, so I'm excited to see what happens there, but you do need to go get a secondary true blue point guard because he's not. Iowa's not a true blue point guard. So you need to have somebody who hopefully you can develop and play right away that can give you 15 to 20 minutes to go along with Io and TSJ at that initiator position that they're going to have.
Yeah, I thought the Io DeSumo contract extension, first of all, I expected some kind of a deal to get done. I think the reason that the deal got done at that high of a level and as long of a deal as that it was is because of the Julius Randle trade. It opened up all
Mm-hmm.
that flexibility with the money. And so they were able to go out and make that happen. I think 22 and a half for that is, to me, it's high.
Ty.
So, but because that's a very big bet on into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like Matt, one of like our co-hosts, he had brought up that he thinks that contract won't look like anything in a few years once everything kind of settles. But I still think that one is a little bit of a reach. I had him probably a 17 to 20 million,
Yeah.
somewhere in that range.
High risk, high reward. It's
Yeah, like I believe in IO, but I was like, ooh, that could be but we also don't know what's going on out there of like the bidding system. Is there anything that the agents are telling them? I would have at
yeah.
least liked to hear an offer from a different team, right? Like publicly, like let's say the Bulls wanted him back. This is
Mm-hmm.
because the Wolves could have matched any offer, right? So I feel like that was a little bit aggressive, but again, Tim Conley,
Yeah.
when he wants to get a deal done, like with his guys in the past, with Nas Reed, Jaden, any of these guys, like he just gets it done. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't wait till the July 1st thing or negotiations of whatever it is after the draft. Like he goes full blown and just gets it done, man. He takes care of
Right.
his players.
Yeah, in terms of you thinking it's a 17 to 20 range a year, which is where I kind of was as well in
Yeah.
that gap of like, is the good faith of just saying, hey, this is what you want, we're going to meet you here. Is that motivation enough for him to just really put in that work. The old Glenn Taylor shake you in the eye, shake your hand and look you in the eye and say you got to earn it. But
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it,
yeah.
some players are built differently like that, where it really, it works for them. Not necessarily as much Andrew Wiggins, but other players in that sense. But also to go along with that, you're paying him 17 to 20 million, but is like Matt's mentioning, is the in 4 years from now, does he
Yeah.
develop and is that 22 million really should it be 35 million for this guy because he's now averaging 19 a game and 5 assists and pairs perfectly with Anthony and his defense has improved. And so I think there's a lot of upside to it. There's injury risk too because of such a long contract, like you run into that, but they're banking on it. They're really banking on it, and they're banking on this core group of these 5-6 guys to develop and turn into a winner. And um,
Hmm.
it'll be interesting because as I'm sure you saw and everybody's seen is Brian Windhorst with his
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards take today of he's been upset since the cat fallout and the trade, and that was tough to see. Especially after also seeing that Giannis was willing to sign here long term. So,
Hmm.
you know, it's it's stressful knowing this year is going to mean a lot, I think, for what Anthony Edwards is thinking, the longevity of this franchise and the trajectory of it.
I think too, like for fans worrying about that Anthony Edwards thing, Chris Hines came out on Twitter today and basically said, um, he can tell you from talking to some people
Mm-hmm.
and still very much loves it in Minnesota. He and his people think it's a great situation. He obviously wants to keep competing at a high level. So don't be smashing the panic button, basically. And Chris Hines wrote the book on Anthony Edwards. He's
He's
super close
close.
with them, right? Like everybody, those are the people that you should be listening to. You shouldn't listen to any national media. Listen to the guys that are in the locker room who have relationships with these
100%.
agents and the players and their managers and everybody. So I'm not smashing the button. Also, remember this: some of his best friends in the NBA, Jaden McDaniels and Nas Reed,
Yep.
best friends off the court. They do a lot of stuff together.
Yep.
Trust me, Anthony Edwards is probably calling Nas Reed and is hype for him that he's finally getting a shine. That's
Yeah.
probably what ended up happening here, right? And again,
100%.
I don't think a lot of the players dislike Randle going out. I don't think they have bad blood with him. I don't think Randle has bad blood with them. I think that the guys genuinely all got along. So we will see what happens this year. Obviously, winning cures everything. And if you don't win, it can turn people against each other. So for now, this is what it's like. If the Timberwolves struggle this year, we'll see. But if you're saying Anthony Edwards is the type of player and the level that we believe he's at, then I still think this team can be a playoff team, like you said. I don't have them as high as you have them. I have them where they finished last year, which is probably the 6th
Fifth,
seed.
sixth, yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
I think it's
They
going to
got
be
to,
like 6, maybe at worst 7th. They play in the play-in game, and they're hosting like
yeah.
game 1.
I would really hate to see them in the play-in this year, but that I think just because of what's
If you
coming
move
down,
Gobert, you're in the plan. Like you're locked in
like
the
very
plan. If
likely.
not, like you're
Yeah,
locked.
yeah. I think there's so much. It's just depending on the outside moves, but
Yeah.
yes, it's more likely than not that you're fighting for that 6, 7, 8 range versus the 5, 4, 3 range. But it's a tough one to swallow to see what's happening, but there's a lot upside. There is tons of upside to all of this. Um, one final thing I'll mention is good for
Yeah.
Mike and Nori. 1 year deal guaranteed is crazy for an NBA head coach in Portland.
Hmm.
But he deserves it. That owner is cheap as hell. Wild that he's only getting a 1 year deal but good for Mike and Nori. Hopefully he can turn it into a long-term thing there in Portland because they have a lot of young talent and it would be cool to see Jaylen Brown go there as well.
It'd be interesting, man. They have Damian Lillard coming back too. A lot of people forget about him. I
Yep.
also want to add before we get out super quick. All I want to say is Rudy Gobert, if he was moved for a pick tonight and the Timberwolves drafted, it could be numerous teams, right? Like we said.
Mhm.
If you could move him up for just one pick, or you could move him for let's say 2 future first round picks, because that's where kind of like I have his value at right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would take the future, just really buy into taking this step back, and I would use those assets in the future along with whatever I like get to go out and get a superstar number 2 next to Anthony Edwards, because I don't want another Rob Dillingham situation. It would be different, right? Because we're moving Gobert to move up this time. But like, if like that guard is an example from Alabama, like I'm out on him, and I'm out. Like I put it in the chat like a little bit, or maybe it was. I just think like you're bringing in a guy who's 180 pounds, like at the same things that Rob had a problem with size, and like he's taller than Rob, which is because I think he's 6'4". Rob was shorter. But like the weight is a factor. If you strike out, it's a factor. And I think what the Spurs have showed me, Oklahoma City, you need big physical guards like Harper, Castle. I could just keep going, right? Like SGA, Lou Dort. I'm not saying SGA is a defender, but like Caruso, like we can get Jason Wallace, right? Guys that are bigger. And otherwise, you're going to struggle. It doesn't matter if he's crafty and fun, right? There's a reason why John Morant's falling off in the league right now. I don't like those players. So that concerns me highly if the Timberwolves were to trade up and get him as an example. I would just lean into the future, because like Chris Finch doesn't play his rookies. He doesn't play his guys. So my argument is like, why do I want a player to bring in, trade up tonight and to get into the lottery? It doesn't matter what position he plays in basketball. We draft him. Doesn't matter anything. I don't care what his hype is. He's not playing. He's not playing here. I know what my coach does. Chris Finch doesn't play him. And then he sits on the bench for 2 years, 2 to 3 years before he gets an opportunity. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like Anthony Edwards is about to enter his prime. This isn't the time to be doing that anymore. So to me, I'm all out. Like I'm done. I'm done with the draft, other than getting lucky and hitting at the second round for like a scrappy role player. But like, what are we doing? I want a player that can play now. That's just my opinion on it. That's my opinion.
No, I think, there's guys in this draft where are going to be good no matter what. And I think like Acuff, and then after that, there's a fall off of like, hey, I don't know if that guy's going to be good. He had to stay a second year in college to move up in the draft. And guys like Bennett Sturts from Iowa, and they're like really good college players, but do they have the athletic profile or the profile to do it? So trading up with Rudy Gobert to 14 and taking Phylon screams Mike Conley 15 to 20 minutes again next year. And that's kind of what it screams to me. And it's scary to think of that again. And that's not to say I don't want Mike Conley back, but I don't want him 15 to 20 minutes back a game. Like, that's just not what I want. So
I mean, the MLE, like we talked about too, to go out and get a player just in case. But still, like why are we drafting a player to just not play? And then everyone's just going to sit there and go, oh my God, he's going to be so good in summer league. And then we go on to hearing about this. Well, if he played, if fan base wanting him to play, and it's like, that's just Chris, man. It's just like, that's what it is. You're leaning into it. So I'm like, what are we doing here? That's the thing. If we draft tonight, I'm just going to have those questions and going, I don't understand this. I don't get it. He's filling Gatorades. Is he that elite at doing that? I don't know.
It's gonna
be. But that's all I want to talk about, Duncan. I think we're gonna get going here, everybody. It's been great having this daytime pod. We haven't done it in a long time. It feels weird. It's like in the middle of a work week, middle of a work day. But we got the NBA draft tonight. It's gonna be a ton of fun. If the Wolves do make a trade, we will be going live, or something will happen tonight. Count us in here at the Daily Wolves. It won't be like last night. So it should be a fun one tonight. We'll cover anything that we hear. We'll post on our social medias. Follow us everywhere. We're the Daily Wolves courtside. And until next time, as always, go Wolves.